okay, there's a few things here, but okay, this might open a can of worms here, but I'm excited to hear your opinion on this.
All right, I'm ready.
So, me and you,
Yeah.
across our time in Direwolves,
Yep.
how many times across those 3 years, or even before that, how many times were we approached by a data analytics company, some, like Shadow GG?
Oh.
We were approached
30.
by a ridiculous amount of them, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Over the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I saw a Reddit post recently
Okay.
where it was like, okay, where there's small little, we've been working on this program for the past year, part-time, and it's just basically, all it does is it goes into the right API of Korea, EU, and NA and tracks all the jungle pathing knowledge, and then puts it into this is the most common path for this champion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, a few threads we can pull on here.
Okay.
I would say the first one is, what is your take on data in League of Legends in general? So that's one. And then the second one I want to go off is, what's your opinion on just third-party programs in general in League of Legends? And yeah, how important is it essentially, and what is your take on it essentially?
Okay. Well, I'm always scared. Okay. I mean, in general, I don't like talking about things I don't fully understand, right? I've never ever been a data guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I wanted to start with here. It's like
we're not data
we're not
analysts
data. Like,
anymore.
me and you, we're just like idiots when it comes to this, you know? But I still think we have merit in what we say. Like, I think it's good to look at our perspective because we're just like complete opposite other end. We just want like the
most pragmatic thing possible. Yes.
I don't care about the data, but even though the data is important, I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But obviously League of Legends, to its, I would say, benefit, but also detriment, there's too much data, right? It's not like in traditional sports where it's like, it's a bit much different. Like, you're not playing in a virtual world. It's like this person runs this far, this person, kicks with this. Like, I mean, I don't even know what data.
I'm sure there is a lot of data, but it's not.
But it's not as much as you possibly could have.
World,
like, League's got ridiculous amount of data. Like, every game probably has more data than like the average.
You couldn't even say. We don't even know.
Maybe like they're more data than 10 like NFL games or something like that. Something like that.
Could even be
crazy.
To be honest with you, it could even be like one league game could even have more data than a whole year of NFL games potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
So again, that's good. But then people, I mean, we've always said this, like me and your conversation. It's like, well, what do you make of it? Like, how does that become? Because at the end of the day, we want it to have an outcome that's beneficial to make a player better, right? And that's what these companies will try and do. It's like, all these startups. They'll be like, well, we want to do jungle tracking. It's like, this is an efficient way we can quickly do the API and we can see this guy's path in. I think that's at most simple. Like, that's pretty potentially useful. I've never really thought of it. I've never actually used mine.
For you then, if you were to get information about pathing,
I know, I get asked this all the time. I don't know. I don't know, man.
And that's what I'm saying. If we don't know how to use it, how can the average person use
it?
And this time's my take on it is like, okay, League is way too dynamic as a game. It's not a static game. There's too many factors at play. The game isn't... Okay, the rules change all the time in League, essentially. I mean, not the rules, but the ground in which it's played. So through patches, through meta shifts, through just straight up numbers in the game. Like, literally every patch, numbers literally change. The way the actual coding of the minions changes. Again, it's like this. There was a pre-season change where cannons are going to attack faster and things like that. The game literally changes. Yes, data is relevant, but I'm just thinking in very pragmatic terms. How is one able to use it to influence their decision making
in a game?
Because this is where it came down to Shern. I remember I brought this specific statistic to Shernfire heading into a grand final.
Yeah,
I said to him, from an analyst, this was the statistic. It said, I can't remember the player. Let's just say Barbip.
Yeah.
Barbip does this path on Nidalee 85% of the time.
Yeah.
You can't...
Oh, that hurts. That actually hurts because The win conditions changed every game. Like I got a path by, I got a path by. I'm versing a Sejuani, or I'm versing a Lee Sin after Respector, or should I punish them?
It doesn't make sense.
It's literally a use.
It's a useless stat.
Completely useless.
Yes, they might even do that path 95% of the time, but what about that 5%?
That one game, yeah.
You can't look at it.
Did you actually say he did a path 85% of the time?
That's what the data one of the analysts gave me.
Dude, that's even weird to me.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. This is what this sort of thing is.
Okay.
This is the most common path.
Yeah.
There's no background information about why. In what games would you change?
Yeah, I mean,
what variables are you taking into account? How does this change given the champs in the game, given the lane states? You can't, even if you have a statistic that would say, 85% of the time, a Rek'Sai in platinum and above will do this path. What the fuck am I meant to do with that?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's the opposite. People do ridiculous paths that make no sense sometimes.
You got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to keep an open mind. Yes, you can have an assumption, but okay, most likely he will do that path. But you can't just write off in your head, oh yeah, he's going to do that path, so I can just do this. No, you still got to ward and look for paths. You still got to keep in mind that he could do some unique
lane
different
priority.
path.
Can I even look to go there? Like I might have to adapt my path real quick because like this lane's just not gankable anymore.
Even if you think 85% of the time, he could just completely do like, instead of doing like as Rek'Sai, instead of doing
here's an example.
3 camp bot side, he can just do like 3 camp top side.
Here's an example from Plains. I was going to make a video on this, but I didn't actually.
Yeah.
Remember the Cacao's path on
Cacao
Hecarim?
path, yeah.
All right, Hecarim versus Nidalee. Hecarim is a very good 5-camp jungle. You want to get your Krugs and Raptors off the map because you're very good at doing those. But because he's against a Nidalee, he can get pressured really hard. He wants to just do his red-blue Gromp. So there's actually very little counterplay for Nidalee. And then he can go back and do his Wolves, Raptors, Krugs. I would never recommend that path to anyone in solo queue.
Yeah.
It's only purely because it's a competitive game.
Wait, to slow it down for the people who don't understand jungle pathing, essentially what's going on here is that Hecarim really wants to get off a full clear.
Yeah.
But Nidalee's very good at invading into the Hecarim's jungle to kill him because Nidalee can do he can do vertical jungles very well, and his early skirmishing, like level 2, level 3, is really strong because he can just auto people down with auto attacks with red buff, and chase people down and things like that.
And Hecarim traditionally doesn't want to do red blue Gromp because that's for machete junglers. He's a talisman.
He's a talisman jungler, yeah.
So he's very bad at doing those camps.
So essentially, what happened? Cacao had to do this very unique path to defend himself from the potential invade, and even though Nidalee didn't do it, he still had to do it just in case.
That's right.
Like risk, safety. So what I'm saying and what I'm trying to get at here is that, like, I think that data in League, it's still a very new thing. And I believe it will be an important part of League in the future. Kind of like Moneyball, with baseball and how they utilize data.
Yep.
I think there is a lot there to do with scouting players as well.
That's more scouting players. That's not, again, we frame me in this conversation.
I'm just saying data in general. Yes, jungle pathing was just an example, and which I think is kind of useless. And I actually think it's actually, to be honest with you, I think all these third-party programs like Porofessor, Blitz.gg, even Mobalytics.
What's Mobalytics? Oh, there's this one thing I hate seeing on people's screens. It's like, this is the CS per minute.
I hate that so much.
And then you got to try to get to that CS per minute.
I think all those programs, okay, I don't want to say that they're not good, but there are some elements that are good. Okay. I think Mobalytics has some...
Okay, for who? For professional players or for the average player?
No, for the average player. I even think for the average player, there are some elements of Mobalytics specifically that I think are good. But it's the way you frame it, and what I get scared of, and whenever I talk to people and they ask me about, they say things like, Curtis, can you take a look at my Mobalytics?
Oh, so people actually say that.
Yeah, people literally say that to me
before.
And
what are they asking? What are you looking for?
They say, like, what do you think about my stats here? What is this telling you? Like, where do you think I should direct my focus? And I just think that, like,
what are the options, out of curiosity?
I mean, it tells you if you're, like, too aggressive and, like, if you're dying too much and things like that. But it's not. Yes, it's a very, very decent base level thing to kind of tell you yes. You don't need a program. You can literally look at your match history and say you're dying too much. You don't need to have a program that's telling you you're dying too much. Now, I just think it's getting people to focus on the wrong things.
Yeah, that's the danger behind it.
It's the danger. It's like okay, cool. And I've heard so many people say, look at my OPGG score and look at my KDA and like look at my all these stats, and like Mobalytics says I'm the perfect player or whatever it is. It's like I don't care about that stuff. The only stats to me that are meaningful for the average player, CS per minute, and death count, I would say is a pretty big one.
Right, but you said you didn't like the little thing on the side saying your CS per minute. gold?
No, not in game. After the game.
Oh, after the game.
CS per
okay.
minute.
So, yeah. got it.
As the average, your average CS per minute.
Yeah.
Across all games.
Yep.
Deaths, and like that's it. I don't care about kills. I don't really care about assists. I don't care about damage dealt.
Yeah,
I don't care about
yeah.
presence on the map. I don't even care about wards placed. I literally don't even care about any of that. All I care about is CS per minute and deaths. Okay, because they're very obvious markers, and they're things that are very important, like just lowering your deaths, and increasing your CS per minute. But again, even then, just because you have a high CS per minute doesn't even mean you're playing the game right. For me, that says this person might just play like a bitch in CS under tower, give all pressure, and then lets the enemy just roam. And if a person...
They have 0 deaths, but like they did nothing to win the game.
Yeah, or maybe a person who has low CS actually has low CS because they're trading overly aggressive. Then all I view it as is a marker to look deeper.
Got it. So it's like, that's the first thing, but it's like, you're not a good or a bad player because of
it's nothing
X.
to do
It's
if
like,
you're a good or
okay.
bad player. Let's get way more specific
Got
here.
it.
What is happening because of this? Just because you see a number doesn't tell you, it doesn't really give you anything specifically what you're doing good or bad. And I feel like the focus on Mobalytics and all these like statistics are dragging people away from the in-game
Decision making.
Yeah, decision making. And there are a lot of games where you're not going to be able to get great CS per minute. You're not going to be able to prevent yourself from dying because it's a very fast-paced, chaotic style game, right? Maybe given your champion identity, you can't have you're playing Katarina, you're not going to have 8 CS per minute. You know, you're not going to have all these stats anyway. Some of my greatest games played in League of Legends, I have the lowest damage dealt, but my presence on the map is so high.
Yeah, I literally did a live game review with one of my coaching clients. Literally, like perfect game, like 270 CS at 23 minutes or whatever. The first thing he said, well, Nathan, look at my damage those games, his lowest damage in the game. But he'd put out a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
he defended his lanes, he did really good control wards, and he was max efficient. He was an insurance. Basically, it was a game where all his team was scaling. All he had to do was not
be an insurance policy.
Be an insurance policy to back up, and that's a perfect game for that specific game.
Yeah.
But maybe another game he has to shoot.
So I love that because it's so much more specific. League is all about the details, and it's all about being very specific to each game. Your role in one game is going to be completely different sometimes in the next game. If I play Orianna, for example, so I've been watching a lot of Dopa's Orianna to see what he's been doing because he's been having a lot of success on the Korean Challenger solo queue ladder, right? And Dopa, the way he plays Orianna is it's a very niche way of playing. He does basically the same thing every single game. He goes, this very aggressive page. He'll go Scorch. He'll go Time Warp Tonic with Biscuits. And he'll start Corrupting Pot. He'll go attack speed with double resistances. He'll go attack speed armor or attack speed MR.
Wait, is that matchup dependent? Is like
if he was using 80 or AP, but he never goes adaptive force anymore for some reason. Anyway, he trades very aggressively and bases around like level 4, level 5 for a Darksteel and a Doran's Ring every single game, right? And this style of playing is super fast paced, super aggressive, and he always takes TP essentially. And it's just a very unique way of playing Orianna. It's not playing for the 1300 gold Lost Chapter Power Spike. He only ever goes Ludens, never goes the Archangel's build, always basically goes Morello second, which a lot of people say is bad, but Dopa goes every single game. Doesn't matter if he needs the healing reduction or not, because again, it gives you a decent amount of HP and burst and things like that. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at here is the average person playing, I mean, you got to understand the context of why he's doing what he's doing. If you're playing Orianna like this in gold, you're probably not going to have that much success. But the reason he does that is because in Challenger, Korean, high elo solo queue, the junglers are incredibly high pace. Fights are breaking out everywhere. You need to be able to exert this pressure on the map because you can't afford to play solo as Orianna because the game just explodes. So I just think what Mobalytics is doing is and these not targeting Mobalytics. I do think there are benefits to Mobalytics, but I think the way we need to use it is very different, and there needs to be a lot more education around it.
Education, I think that's the key one.
Education is the key here.
Because there's too many things, as well as even OPGG, it says this is the best build in this rank. But it's like, I look at it, it's like, well, you got to adapt your runes every game.
I would love to do a piece with Mobalytics on how I would use the program.
Okay.
You know? Yeah. Like if Mobalytics reached out to me, I would love to do something with them saying, this is how I would recommend using. These are the stats that I think are important for this X player at X rank to look at. And why.
Yep.
And the mindset behind it, the way you got to view it. Okay, and I'm just scared, man. There's so many people overcomplicating their league improvement. Like,
absolutely, people
there's overcomplicating shit. You don't need to overcomplicate it, man.
That's the story of everyone. Like someone can like have this crazy theory about why they should have pathed one direction. I'm like, it's actually a lot more simple. I could simplify that in 3 nice little key options.
Yeah,
and that's why not. But everyone loves to. I don't know if it's whether it's because sometimes they want to feel smart about the game. But again, going back to what I said originally, in the first thing here is that you always, if you can't explain things simple enough, you don't fully understand it.
Yeah, the smartest people are able to explain things extremely simply. Back to the data thing, it would be very interesting to see how data is used to scout players, because I think that would be a massive...
That's probably the first thing that I would think is that's going to be, I'd say really important in terms of the way data is used in League, but again, from the pro scene. Again, the way that I always view data, like I would never, like all my like gold, plat, even diamond coaching clients, I never would tell them anything about data.
Yeah, data I think is a challenger thing. It's a pro level thing.
I would not go there at all.
One thing, if we were to look at challenger players though, if I were to scout for a player as a mid laner, one thing that I would really want to see is, I love this stat where it says presence on the other side of the map. So it's
I like that. Yeah, that's
there's
good.
like a stat where it tells you like their presence in the enemy jungle.
That makes sense.
And their presence in like how often are they pushing past the halfway point?
I'd love to see that, because
that's like a really cool
for
stat.
A jungler example, let's say I begin the game, like I actually that would be really really handy if I just knew that instantly from the get go. It's like, this is my win condition. This is like this side I wanted to play towards, and then this thing tells me, well, he only spent 20% of the time there. Like, that's great. Then I could actually figure it out. I would actually already have that perception in my head going to the review, and it'll make me things very quickly, versus that 10-minute mark, I'm like...
Wait, so you're saying that you would want to know information about, from a jungler's perspective, how often they are at a specific area in the map?
Of the map. Based on their original win condition.
Okay, got you.
That's useful.
Yeah, but I was talking more specific. I was talking more like overall, like as a player, to say how aggressive they are.
Okay, got it.
So like if they're...
so you're talking about like past...
Yeah.
Sorry, past the mid lane.
Yeah.
Like it's like them side, their
like
minions.
how often are they... How often are they getting pressure, essentially?
Yeah, actually, that's useful.
So if they're getting pressure a lot, it says either they're taking really good trades, or they know how to play the map well.
And then if they're really pushed up all the time, but they're not getting anything from it, you can figure out then why. It's like, why aren't you roaming, or why...
Then you could like, use that as an indicator to go a little bit deeper. Like, are they pushing unnecessarily when they should be freezing in the early game, Like what... that's where... I just think that there is a place of data. I think right now, though, we need to figure out how to better utilize it, and the education around it needs to be much better.
And it's all about using it as just the beginning, but then you always go deeper.
Exactly. So... we'll put a pin on that. I reckon that's a topic we'll probably have to come back to.
Yeah.
And I want to do more research on these programs.
I actually will. I'm going to look into mobility.
Let's look into mobility.
That's the main one that people talk about. That's actually like people say it's good.
Yeah. So let's actually look into it more, and let's talk about how we would use it as players at certain ranks. Yeah. I think that is, you would have to break it into certain ranks. Anyway.